Morning, everybody. Welcome. This is the morning meeting on the two-way platform. Thank you for joining. Sean, Dan, and I will run through the day for you, and then we'd love to have your participation. Professor Kenny, I didn't warn you in advance, but could you please do the opening remarks about what people should do on this platform, what they should do
I like it.
on X and YouTube after unmuting, please? Go ahead.
You caught me off guard.
That's all right. Go ahead.
Yes, everybody should join the morning meeting on YouTube, on Zoom, on X. Go to twoway.tv if you don't know where to get your links, and that's where you will find Mark, Sean, and Dan, and Professor Kenny.
What if people want to ask questions here? What should they do?
Raise your hand.
Yeah.
Raise your electronic hand, your digital hand, which is at the react heart at the bottom of the screen, and be patient, and hopefully you'll be called on.
And what should they do if they're on X or YouTube?
What's the ethos?
Yes. Peace, love, and understanding. No smack in the chat. And on the Zoom, we kind of control the smack in the chat, so it's a little better. I can't speak for the YouTubers.
All right. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
And by the way, just one last piece of ethos. If you're a Pacers fan, just contain yourself a little. There's only one more game to go.
Oh, is there? Okay. All right.
All right. There are three two ways after this today. Megan at noon. I'm on at 6 with the owner of the Los Angeles Times, Dr. Patrick Soon-Shiong, and Bridget Fedesi is on at 7 tonight. I'll tell you more about those as the program goes forward. The president today, for the second straight day, has no public events on his schedule. Yesterday, we saw him briefly through a White House video announcing a pardon for 2 reality show stars. I say stars in air quotes, but as of now, the only thing he's doing is executive orders at 2 in the Oval, currently closed press. That, of course, could open up. There's a lot of speculation about why the president is not speaking. I'll offer mine and then hear from Dan and Sean, just rank speculation, assuming you don't know, which is he doesn't want to talk about Putin. He's happy to truth it, but he doesn't want to be commenting on Putin. That's my guess. Dan, any idea?
I also suspect he doesn't want to talk about Israel and Iran.
Sean?
I don't know. I don't think he ever cares. I mean, like I've never seen him back away from any conversation, so I don't know that I buy that. I will say there was a good, interesting Politico stat this morning that Playbook had, that this is the first period of 48 hours where he hasn't, done a public event. I do think we'll see. I actually think the 2 o'clock executive order signing, we'll see him. But I think this is just, it's a long weekend and that's it.
Yeah, you're probably right. It is a little odd. All right. The vice president is in Vegas today after doing a fundraiser last night. We'll talk about that in a moment. Speaking to Bitcoin 2025 conference. Other Trump folks have spoken there already yesterday, including Don Jr. and David Sachs. House and Senate still out, and President Zelensky is in Berlin meeting with the German chancellor. All right. So, and if you like this shirt, please put in the comments. This is from our friends at Fairway and Green. If you like the shirt with the two-way logo, please put in the comments how much you'd pay for this shirt. Just doing more market research. They'll be available soon.
Now, wait, what do people think about pink? I mean, you've done black, you've done navy, white. This is the first real pop of color.
Yeah, I think the pink with the classic two-way blue and green logo works.
I do. Yep.
It depends on your skin tone. I got to be honest with you. I don't do well in light colors. It's just.
Yeah, it's not for everyone. But
no.
By the way, Dan, guess what country this shirt was made in?
The United States.
Correct.
Nice.
Correct. So think about how much you'd pay for. Like, it's not like buying a $3,500 iPhone, but it's going to be a little bit more, maybe not.
Note to Democrats: real men wear pink.
Yeah. All right. So.
You know what? By the way, I hope we do get to talk about, speaking of real men, talking about what real men should do. Nope. Pete had some great comments in the last 48 hours that we can.
Pete Hegseth?
No, Pete, big boy Pete Buttigieg with his beard. He's talking about how he's concerned about how Republicans are addressing porn. It's fantastic.
Where did that happen?
He said they're what? they're addressing porn.
He is concerned about the Republicans, quote, Mike Johnson's position on porn.
He's concerned that they're stealing the Democrats' thunder, or he's
I don't know, but apparently that should be a bigger campaign issue. So I've got it in my show lineup tonight. I'll play it for you.
There's
Okay.
a lot of.
All right. The vice president, as I said, in Las Vegas last night, went to a fundraiser. The Washington Post has the invite. Here it is, 105A. And this is a long-running theme of mine and on this program and on Two-Way, which is the vice president is unique. There's never been an incumbent vice president who's been authorized to do as much to position to run on his own. Vance's appearance at the MAGA Inc. event, this was the Vegas fundraiser last night, comes as the VP is emerging as a powerful fundraising force for Trump's political operations, not only appearing at another recent $1 million per head private dinner for the pro-Trump super PAC in Palm Beach, but also at RNC fundraisers. This spring, Vance became the first vice president to be tapped as the RNC's finance chair, doing so ahead of the party's push to hold the House and Senate in the 2026 midterms. George H.W. Bush, Al Gore, Joe Biden, none of them were given the access to the president's donors the way Vance has. Sean,
Well,
how big an advantage is this for him to try to lock up the nomination in 28 if he wants it?
It's massive. I mean, there's two stories here that I see. Number one, the story that you're alluding to, the role that JD Vance is playing, the opportunity he has. I mean, when you go, you are literally. I mean, what's the Glengarry Ross? Like these are the leads. You're getting on the phone. They're handing you and saying, "Call Dan Turrentine." I mean, Dan knows this better than anyone. But like, here are the guys that give money. Here's the messages for them. Blah 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 blah. You're developing a relationship with them. This is like literally getting 18 extra at bats before the game starts. Like you're warmed up like no one else. You're developing relationships. This is huge. The second story that I think is almost as big but completely separate is the Trump political operation. Both the RNC, the Trump Vance 2025 committee, by the way, which is what the headlines are, and then MAGA Inc., etc. No president in modern history has, in their second term, maintained a political operation the size and scope of which this team is doing. It benefits the party, it benefits him and his team and going forward. But normally you win a second term and it's like you shut you throw the keys out the window and say bye-bye. These guys are maintaining a political operation the likes of which has never been seen in a second term.
And I wouldn't even say second term. Usually,
You're right.
Yeah. And Dan, Sean alluded to your deep experience with the donor class. There are lots of differences between Republicans and Democrats, but the donor classes are pretty similar, right, culturally. And one thing that I think occurred to me that is different between Vance and Trump, which is Vance is a lot more donor class friendly stylistically. Yep. Much easier to talk to him, to ask him questions and get linear answers as opposed to the weave. Much more, just greater cultural affinity. He worked in equity and private equity in a way that a lot of them can relate to. So talk about if Joe Biden or Al Gore had been given this type of perch, how much greater their chances would have been.
Yeah, I mean, there's three parts to this. There's the access to the donors, which clearly he has. There's the comfort with the donors. There's a lot of members of Congress and governors who get very uncomfortable around these people. JD Vance, to your point, seems very much at home, at ease. And then the last part, which may be as important, is there's no question that JD Vance is at the table on a lot of these issues. His staff populates the White House. They some of them are in charge of some of these agencies, and it's been pretty well documented. So on some level, it's the perfect storm. It's the access, the comfort, and the influence. And Trump, to his credit, seems very comfortable putting JD Vance in this perch. So
the relationships that they build, right? These guys, the team's goal is to maximize your time. So you get up there, you maybe make a phone call for a specific ask, or to go to an event or to host an event. The relationship that you build, you can't put a price tag on that, because the ROI on a big donor. So when you put a piece of mail out to solicit a donor for $100, you pay for the mail, for the stamp, you pay for the paper, you pay for whatever. Your ROI on that is much greater than an individual that you call and say, hey, can you give me 10 grand? Can you host $100,000 event, $1 million event? that costs you a phone call and 10 minutes of your time. So the ROI on big donors is so much greater, and the relationship that he builds is going to give him such a financial advantage going into the 2028 cycle. I don't know that anybody else who's not independently wealthy could compete.
Well,
Yeah.
and the thing too that you're allowed to, that you can then do is, if I get to know Sean Spicer because he writes $1 million checks, I get to know Sean's family. So let's say Sean's kid's graduating from high school, right? I'll write a personal note. I'll send the video to the bat mitzvah, seller. Those little things go so far in building and the Clintons were masters at this. They still do it today. Like They show up at Huma's wedding. They're everywhere. And therefore, as a donor, you're like, what can I do for you? And that transactional nature is how you form steep bonds.
Right. So if you look at modern history and the presidential process, which I do from Reagan after Reagan, because everything changed. 88, both seats open, right? The next time both seats are open is 2000, right? The next time both seats are open is 2008. The next time both seats are open is 2016, okay? And that's our sample space. There's no front runner in the Democratic Party. It's the most wide open it's ever been. And the asymmetry is the Republican contest is the most non-open an open race has ever been in this time period. Vance has a stranglehold on this. And even if Governor Pritzker is the nominee, I believe today there's every reason to believe that J.D. Vance's pot of money, super PAC, outside groups, money he raises into his campaign, will be substantially larger than any Democrats. Substantially larger. That's not everything, but it's a big deal to be able to say that today. And he's only increasing the chances of that as he gets the stranglehold over the party apparatus. Dan.
Well, I think that where that will really be key is, let's say in 2027, when let's say there's 10 Democrats running around the country competing in a primary, and let's say his field is clear, he can use that money to both like build himself up if he's got holes, hire the staff, and get ready to pummel whoever emerges, or if they want to play in the Democratic primary and try to like cause mischief or whatever.
Correct.
That ability to have a clear field on your side and money, and the other side scrambling. Sometimes you never get off the mat.
Correct.
Well, look, the one other thing.
Go ahead.
And Charlie Kirk and everybody else. Yeah.
There's two pieces to this equation. I mean, actually, the third is what you're mentioning, kind of maybe in this modern day, is the sort of super surrogate type folks. But the X factor in all this, which I think is going to line up with the money, is the data. Data is king in a modern presidential election, knowing who to call, who not to call, what moves voters, what doesn't move voters, what their propensity to vote is, and blah, 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 blah. If JD inherits, which I believe he will, the current Republican data operation, then it's I mean, you talk about money, Mark, that puts him so far ahead, because if you think about the time, because Trump was involved in hand in glove with the RNC since 2016, the data that they share about likely voters, propensity to vote, non-voters, new registrants, will go so far in putting him, I mean, like that costs a ton of money, and handing that over to him and saying, here you go. That's money that you don't have to spend on that. That's time that you don't have to waste building it. That, I would argue, is probably a bigger advantage than the money.
Well, I wouldn't want to choose between them. They're both huge advantages. And then you've got Charlie Kirk, who's going to continue to register voters in the battleground states, right? Again, I'm not saying J.D. Vance can't lose. He might not be the nominee. What I'm saying is, on the current trajectory, the Democrats, and they don't have the outside groups, because all the smart people, all the data people, all the money people are trying to pick a horse. So they're focused on who's our nominee going to be, not how do we build to register voters in Pennsylvania. And the voter registration trends and the data I saw today continue to be bad for Democrats in the battleground states.
Horrible.
Some of that's happening, or some of that's happening organically, but some of it is the Republican apparatus remains up and running, and the Democrats, are again trying to figure out.
That's the story, though, right?
Yeah.
Think about that. I mean, you mentioned all those markers in history. The idea that I got 3 fundraising emails last night, 18 texts from Trump,
right, and some from Vance, by the way.
Sure, but the point is that normally there's an atrophy to the political operation.
Correct.
That doesn't. I mean, that the the keeping that in motion is so huge.
Correct. And I'll say one last thing, then we got to move on. Vance's ability to get along with everybody inside the government and in the political team is phenomenal. Al Gore, George W. Bush, H.W. Bush, Joe Biden had a bunch of enemies, had a bunch of rivals, say again? Kamala Harris too. Had a bunch of people who were like, no, not enthusiastic or worse. I can't find anybody currently in the party. And it's quite a change from the summer of 2024 when before Trump picked Vance, there were a lot of people saying to me openly, like very MAGA people, please don't pick Vance. Vance is a disaster. Go around and try to find anybody now in the party who doesn't like Vance. It's quite an achievement. And it's why all the apparatus that Sean talked about, all the money that Dan and I and Sean are talking about, it's never happened before. It may not be dispositive, but it's a massive advantage. And there's no one in the Democratic Party who can do a damn thing about it.
Before we move on, can I just ask your opinion, Mark? Who do you think writes the story about what we just talked about and pretends that it's their own? Do you think it's Politico or the Wall Street Journal?
They're all watching. They're scribbling down notes.
That's why
they're scribbling down notes. And here's what they're saying is, please tell us who the best sources would be on this. So we don't have to do any of it. I don't know. I may write it. Just because I can, but we'll see. All right. Elon Musk. I don't know, 1.5 feet out the door, maybe 1 foot and 8 toes out the door. For some reason, did 2 interviews in the last couple of days, one with CBS, one with the Washington Post, not MAGA outlets. And with CBS, this would be 103, he trashes the House big, beautiful bill. 103, please.
So, I was like disappointed to see the massive spending bill, frankly, which increases the budget deficit, not just decrease it, and undermines the work that the Doge team is doing.
I actually thought that when this big, beautiful bill came along. I mean, like, everything he's done on Doge gets wiped out in the first year.
I think a bill can be big or it can be beautiful, but I don't know if it can be both. My personal opinion.
Dan, what's going on there?
Yeah, I think he's a little bitter. I mean, he took all these arrows, he took all this heat, and we said it here the last couple of months. I watch what Congress does. They are not going to enshrine a lot of this work. I actually think over the next 2 years they'll undo a lot of it. Bipartisan, that is not Democrats. We don't control anything. This is Republicans who never liked what he was doing, and I think he knows that those comments to those, CBS and the Washington Post, he knows the audience he's going to. He knows he's sticking it to the White House a little bit. I mean, the question is this all he does, or does he start popping off on X? Does he start trying to kind of build a little bit of a movement to sabotage this bill? Because there are some in the Senate who want to cut more, but there's a heck of a lot more who want to cut less and have even more adding to the deficit. So as a Democrat, great.
Sean.
I think look, I get what he's saying, right? Which is you do all this work. I'm a little disappointed in the deficit reduction. I get it. I mean, at some point it's you have to balance it, and especially with the quote unquote cost of the tax cuts, which don't believe tax cuts cost money to allow people to give what they earned. Government costs money. I understand his frustration. He took a lot of hits. They've done a lot of great work, and I wish there was more. So I share his frustration. I think this is the beauty of being an outsider and kind of stepping 1 foot back out, is you can say we're doing this. But I would say without his work, we wouldn't be able to do as much on the revenue side because of some of those reforms. Also, a lot of them can't be counted in the score, so it's a little disingenuous to throw the work of Doge under the bus because of how CBO, OMB, and the Joint Tax Committee score things. So it's a little bit more complicated. I understand his frustration, but I also think, like, politically, you're either on the team or you're not, and it's tough when you're the guy who's out there doing that and you're throwing cold water at a very fragile situation. It's not helpful. So I mean, I understand his frustration. I don't think that it's helpful being out there throwing cold water on something as it's headed to the Senate.
Sean, does Trump stay quiet on this? I mean, if he takes questions in the Oval and somebody asks him about Elon.
Oh, I don't think you even have to ask him about Elon. I think you just ask him about the bill. I think he's going to say that they should make some changes. There's going to be some. I mean, like,
So
look,
he won't tell Elon to. I mean, historically, Trump doesn't take kindly to people crapping on his stuff.
but he's not. I don't think he looks at it as his bill right now. So I think that's the difference. He doesn't look at that, and this is my opinion. That this is his, so therefore you're crapping on mine. This is, this is what the House did. He already told the Senate, go make changes. I mean, right? I mean, if it's funny because he wanted the House to pass it, and then the first thing he basically said publicly to the Senate was, do what you have to do.
Okay.
So I don't think he's offended by Elon's comments. But again, part of this is it's just it's more of a staff frustration, probably. Like, you've got to be kidding. We're trying to keep this thing duct taped together.
All right, here's a trick question. Who's the most powerful South African American in the Trump administration right now?
So Musk isn't in the administration anymore, right? Is that what we're?
No,
if he is still a foot in the door, then I'd say
David Sachs is also
I was going to say that you're going to
South African American. David Sachs is a great podcast host, a great business person. He's also in charge of two tiny little topics: AI and crypto. It seems like a big job. He spoke at the crypto conference that the vice president spoke at, and he also appeared last night on one of Dan's favorite shows with Jesse Waters. Here's David Sachs last night, 104.
This is the financial system of the future, Jesse, and we have to encourage it. What the Biden administration was doing, and let's face it, it wasn't Biden. Elizabeth Warren controlled the auto pen during that administration. She, for some reason, has this pathological hatred of the crypto community. She wants to drive this community offshore. She doesn't want it happening in the United States. That's the wrong policy for the United States. We want all the innovation happening here. This is a financial system of the future. It's cheaper, it's more efficient. We want it happening here, Jesse, and I think people are thrilled that President Trump is making that possible.
So my view is fine to go on Fox, but somebody in that job shouldn't just be on Fox. And I don't think he should be so partisan. And I think Democrats should be looking to work with David Sachs, because these two issues are going to define, to a large extent, the future of America and the world, particularly AI. And the way AI has now become partisan. But the blame is not just with the Republicans, although they deserve a lot of it, because the Biden administration really alienated those two communities. Yep. Their overregulation of AI, their hostility to crypto really opened the door for people like David Sachs to say, I'm going to go all in with Trump. Sean, how much confidence do you have in David Sachs to handle both of these? And how should the Democrats be approaching this?
So it's an interesting question you're asking, and I don't know that I know the answer to that, because every time I have a conversation about either one of those subjects, I'm blown away. The depth and breadth of the impact that both of those will have. I do think that everyone that I know has a ton of respect for the guy. This is not my world. I am in awe of it. It's like space to me. And somebody, when people talk about, it's like, I don't know how you do it, how you train for it, but I'm in awe of the people who do. And so I feel confident that at least, it was funny. This is a weird anecdote, but I remember back at the RNC when we'd hire people who, like, Spanish speakers, and you'd go in and you'd interview them, and I'd be like, okay, how do you, like, I'm hoping that you're proficient, because I can't, like, they could be speaking gibberish, and yet I'm like, okay, that sounds good. So you have to rely on others to say, yes, that dialect, they're really good there. It's not it's not one side or the other in terms of, there's people with a Puerto Rican dialect versus a Mexican dialect. And I didn't recognize sometimes the nuances. And I think when you look at AI, it's almost like a foreign language to a lot of people. And so everyone I know seems to think that he's a very well-regarded, competent guy, but I'm in awe of the topics, and because the same thing's true with crypto.
Yeah, Dan, before you jump in, a couple things. First of all, the president, in addition to his schedule, just announced at noon he will participate in the swearing-in ceremony for Judge Jeanine as the interim U.S. attorney for D.C. Second, Dan, it's a Democratic Party has 999 problems. I put this near the top, both substantively and politically, because the asymmetry between your party and Sean's on ownership of this, connection to the private sector, talking points about where the party stands. I know exactly where MAGA stands on these 2 points, or at least the Trump administration. I got no idea what the Democrats stand for. So what should your party be doing about crypto and AI?
Yeah, it's a great question. And actually, I will say this, David Sachs isn't entirely wrong in that a lot of Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders personnel populated the Biden White House. Like that is true. And to your point, Mark, it was largely hostile to these industries. I think where there's potentially an opening is, I think a lot of these business people want to accelerate the innovation because they've got investments in stuff, right? They see the potential of it. They're not thinking about this in terms of the general public. I mean, Axios and others are writing daily. In fact, I think today Axios has this like 5-alarm fire on AI is about to wipe out 20% of the white collar entry level jobs in finance and law,
including 2 of the 3 jobs on this show.
Yes, that's right. I mean, look, AI could do what I do. Yeah, exactly. And so, if the party were smart, we need to be pro-innovation. We need to say, how can America lead on this? How can we be the best in the world? I think too often we say they're bad actors, they have bad intentions. Here are all the things that could go wrong with the technology. Instead of saying, yes, that is true, but we need to be the leader. We need to have a good environment for this. My former boss in Jared Polis, I mean, this is amazing, tried to get me in 2014 to buy $1,000 worth of crypto at $225, whatever, like Bitcoin or whatever it was, right? I mean, he was all over this stuff at the time. And he would hear Democrats say, it's right for corruption, it's right for fraud, criminal people. And he'd say, every one of your arguments is true for the US dollar as well.
Right.
There's nothing that isn't. And so it's the same with AI, but it's the mindset of, okay, we still should embrace the technology and try to find a way to be the leader versus here are all the reasons to get to know.
Well, the bigger issue to me, especially on the crypto side, the reality on both issues, the train is going down the track.
Yep.
Like that's the one thing that I think that on the Republican side we understood really quick, which is you're not being asked whether or not it's okay or not, or it's going.
It's happening.
Right. It's happening. So are you getting on the train?
The private sector and the world are marching
on. The world,
on.
right. That's
marching
the key, Mark. The world is doing this. And on AI, to your point, like the AI is a jobs issue in terms of not just creating jobs, but diminishing jobs, ones that are going to go bye-bye. 2, it's an education issue on multiple fronts. I mean, how many times now as a dad do I hear about, hey, kids are getting exposed to the following, they're writing papers and stuff. Like this is changing the way we learn, what kids do and don't do, how they write papers, how they don't,
how teachers grade stuff. Some teachers are using AI now to,
I would just say, I mean, just in terms of the solutions that it solves in healthcare and everything else. So that I'm frankly surprised that we're having this conversation. Not that we're having it, but that it should exist. Like it's happening.
Right.
And if you as a party don't get on board,
right, and
bye-bye.
And David Sachs is in the government. He's not the RNC head of crypto and AI. But make no mistake, the political apparatus around David Sachs, and to some extent David, are driving this policy, but they're also gaining every possible advantage, political advantage for the party, grassroots, fundraising, leveraging it in all sorts of ways. And I'm telling you, the Democrats are at zero because they don't control the House or the Senate or the White House, but also because they just don't have the horses at this level now because the hostility they showed to both sectors. So yes, they're giving money to some Democrats, whatever, but the asymmetry is massive. And this is like being out of the game in the 90s, like on the internet, right? Where both parties understood it's crazy and super important politically and substantively. All right, two more topics we're going to do pretty quick, and then we're going to get to your questions. Please raise your hand. Again, if you've never asked a question before, today could be an opportunity to talk to Dan and Sean, which few Americans get to have, but you do because of the two-way platform. So please raise your hand. All right, guys, real quick on both topics. Dan first. You're hired to be a consultant to Harvard, and you need to give them 2 pieces of advice about how to fight this war against the White House. 2 one-sentence pieces of advice. Dan.
The question, I would quickly offer a question.
Yeah.
Do you think you can wait the administration out with your resources and the courts?
They hired, dude, they're paying you a Burisma 50 grand a month.
Because
no questions, answers.
It's a fork in the road.
You decide.
If your goal is to get out of this, you need to give him something to win.
Yes.
He has to be able to spike the football in your face that he got a pound of flesh. Let's put all the options on the table and let's go offer one, knowing you're going to have to accept two. Otherwise, go to the endowment, go to the donors, and if you're going to fight this out and hope that Pete Buttigieg is president.
I'm the president of Harvard, and I'm your client.
I'm fired.
Oh, okay. Give me an example of something that Trump would accept.
We are going to create a public policy school on, like, basically the populism or whatever.
The Barron Trump School of Populist Studies.
We're going to name it after the Trumps, basically.
Yeah. And an honorary degree, and the president of Harvard has to resign.
And we're gonna allow oversight on anti-Semitism, which is technically what he says this is about, although I don't believe that whatsoever. We'll give you oversight on anti-Semitism.
All right, Sean, what would you add to Dan's advice to Harvard? 50 grand a month.
I don't think
50 grand a month.
This is from someone from New Haven, Connecticut, so take it with a grain of salt.
They need to do something bigger on anti-Semitism, like a task force on this, and allow key folks to come in to be part of some overhaul of Harvard's policy on anti-Semitism. You should give that away for free because it's the right thing to do anyway.
All right.
Number two.
Yeah, go ahead.
Number two is I think that they should they're going to lose on this foreign student thing. The end of the day, that's going to cost them big time. So figure out a way to get them the list. The Princess of Sweden or something is one of the students, or I mean, like, Trump's already said, I'm not looking to get rid of foreigners. But I think that there's no reason. The State Department's going to deny the visas anyway, and you're going to screw yourself out of that money. So you need to come to a solution on that one quick. But I think those two things would address Trump's winning. So there's two issues here. There's the politics and the policy, and then the politics and the legal. Trump's winning on the politics on both. No question about it. People don't feel bad for a school that has a $54 billion endowment. So no one is crying crocodile tears for Harvard right now. The issue is they need to then fight this on the political landscape, and give him a win on those two fronts, and frankly, do the right thing anyway. So I think that would assuage him, and that would put the argument back in a sort of a neutral position.
All right, ask me, because I get paid. You guys get
all right,
50.
Mark, what should they do?
You guys get 50 a month. I get 75. This is an unwinnable war. They're fools to try to appease the president. He'll never give in, no matter what you offer him, what you give
I don't
him.
agree with that. You're way overpaid.
Give up on foreign students. Give up on all federal money. Move the university to Ottawa. It's the only way out. Sell the real estate around Harvard. I'm telling you, this is unwinnable. It's unwinnable. Yes.
I don't agree.
One of the biggest stories right now that is happening, because it's all over New York City, is how much these schools depend on foreign students paying full tuition.
No, I know.
Wait, hold on.
I know.
The number of upper class kids who got off the wait list this year at a lot of these schools in the last month is stunning.
Yeah. You
walk down the street out here, and it's all you hear in Central Park from the moms.
I know. I know. I never predict judges, justices, or juries, but I don't believe the courts will say it's okay to say Harvard can't have foreign students. But I do believe the State Department can deny them interviews, and that's that. So Trump is going to destroy Harvard if they try to appease him. He's just going to keep asking for more. They have to give up. They have to redo their model, because they will never win this fight.
I disagree with that. I think they'll win it. They'll win part of this in the courts. Trump has already said that he doesn't want to get rid of all foreign students. So that's why I'm saying, show the list, give it up. They'll look through it, and then they'll say, okay, there's 3 bad people, and that's it. Who cares?
Okay, I follow space as closely as I follow JoJo Siwa, so I'm not clear what's happening, because
that new dance, by the way, that she did was phenomenal.
I thought they launched yesterday. I thought there was an unsuccessful launch yesterday. They're launching again, or I'm wrong? They didn't launch yesterday.
They launched. It did not work. Now they're launching again. They're doing a redo today.
But didn't the thing they launched yesterday explode?
Yes.
Yes.
So they're redoing it with a backup, a second rocket. That's what's happening. Two separate rockets.
Yeah, Doge found an extra rocket.
Chris Taylor said 2 rockets. I believe Chris Taylor because he's a man of space. All right. Lastly, again, guys, be brief. I don't think we really know much about Russia. There's all sorts of talk about Zelensky, and apparently some Ukrainian official talked to some Russian official. Like the trend, the line here sort of seems to be there may now be more substantial Ukrainian-Russian talks, not at the Vatican though. Dan, just one sentence or two of thoughts on where we are in Russia.
I don't think anything has changed this week.
Okay. Sean?
Yeah, just one moment, because I do think that last rocket definitely looked like a Falcon 9.
Yeah.
Hold on. And the Starship was yesterday. That's all my thoughts. I'm not reading.
Okay. All right. Jojo Siwa. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. No. Her latest dance was phenomenal. I saw that the other day. No, look, I don't think that there's anything new on this front.
Okay.
We'll see what it develops by the end of the week.
All right. Now to your questions. Again, as always, welcome in. Peace, love, and understanding bursting from your heart. Here comes Frank with Biden land in Gainesville assessed damage in Live Oak. Not sure why you're showing us that, Frank, but please unmute.
Yeah, what does that
Welcome
mean?
in. Welcome in. And tell us where you are and what's on your mind. Thank you for being a part of Two-Way.
Well, thank you, Mark and Dan and Sean. I'm in Live Oak. I'm the mayor of Live Oak, Florida.
Nice.
We are located exactly halfway between Jacksonville and Tallahassee on I-10.
How long have you been mayor, sir?
7 years.
Do you live closer to a Walmart or a Whole Foods?
Walmart, of course.
Just making sure.
That's 24-hour Walmart.
I have to say, in my experience, if you drive more than 20 minutes from any major Florida city, you might as well be in rural Alabama.
It's God's country here.
Yes, sir. And are you a partisan mayor or nonpartisan mayor?
Well, it's nonpartisan. I, of course, belong
Yeah.
to a party, but it's
Okay.
not-
And who's more powerful, you or the council?
the city manager.
City manager.
Yeah.
Okay. That
Yeah, but-
system. I know that system. Who picks the city manager?
The council.
So you're third, basically.
Yes, I
You
can't do much.
You open supermarkets and
there you
car
go.
car dealerships and
I do the things that I love to do and then
Yes,
let
sir.
them fill the potholes.
is that a full-time job, mayor?
It is not.
Yeah. What else do you do, sir?
Well, I'm also an attorney. I do a little part-time law. Pastored a church for many, many years here
Great.
in Live Oak. And
Awesome.
done a
Well,
little bit of everything.
we're glad to have you here and eager to hear what's on your mind.
Okay, well, we had 3 hurricanes in 13 months come through Live Oak. Dahlia came through in August of 23, and then the Bidens came and visited us here on, I think it was September the 2nd or 3rd. So this is just a story. This is anecdotal, has nothing to do with whether Biden was capable or not capable. You know, we heard a lot of talk about what he knew and what his cognitive abilities were. But when we met at the airport here, we have a small airport. They flew in on the helicopter. We met them. The first thing he said to my beautiful wife, Amanda, was, "You have the most beautiful blue eyes." So we visited a little bit, took him on a tour of the damages. And when we left, he repeated to my wife, he said, "You have those beautiful eyes." Well, we got an invitation to the White House for a Christmas party. And I started not to go, but I'm glad I did. And we were there in the East Room. He made a little speech. We were way back a little ways, but he was having some photographs taken, and we made our way up, and I hollered out, "Mr. President, Live Oak, Florida." And he turned and looked. He looked right at my wife, and he said, "There are those eyes."
Now, Frank, just objectively, does your wife have nice eyes?
She is a beautiful woman.
All right. All right. Just
That,
Right
I've
answer.
heard people say he didn't know what was going on, but he did that day, and I'm not
Yeah.
saying that he was, not cognitively challenged, but I just thought that was an interesting story.
it is indeed. We're glad that you shared it. Appreciate that. How's your governor doing, Frank?
Well, I think he's doing pretty good. The legislative session, they haven't finalized the budget, so they're having to come back and do that. But
Are you friends with the governor?
I've met him several times.
Yeah.
Gave him a key to the city a couple
Yeah.
of years ago.
All right.
So,
If he said to you, "Frank, I'm thinking of running for president again," and I want to understand why I didn't do as well as I thought I would in 2024. What would you tell him he could do better?
That's good. That is a very good question. Don't try to outdo Trump.
Good answer. Good answer. Sean, anything you want to say to or ask the mayor?
I didn't know if there's 3 extra keys to the city that you happen to.
I have many keys to the city. If you come to Live Oak, I guarantee you, each one of you will get the key to the city treatment.
All
All
right.
right.
100%.
That's good. Now, Frank, just so you know, I'm already a Kentucky colonel. So,
Well,
that's
key to Live Oak can't top that. But
well, no, I think it can. Yes, sir.
I tell how I found the morning meeting two-way?
Please do.
Very briefly. So I remember back when you could watch Morning Joe, you were on there. I really enjoyed your commentary. And so I was looking for something fresh and different this last time with the election. And a few weeks before, I thought, I'm hearing the same old from the, your same people. And I thought of you. And so I looked you up and found the morning meeting. And when I got plugged in, I knew right there I was at the right place. And really appreciate your commentary. And of course, Sean, and then Dan, we've come to love Dan, he's a great guy.
Frank, we loved having you on. We hope you'll come back, and we're going to start planning our trip down there right now because Kentucky Colonel, whatever, but key to Live Oak seems pretty good. So thank you for the hospitality offer.
Yeah, well, and I'll also just say, because Frank, I mean, first off, that's a great story. It's adorable.
Yeah.
And Mark, you've said this, and I have too. Joe Biden had good days. I mean, the idea that he was a vegetable, like incapable of doing anything, is just not true. And I think there were bad days, and we all saw them sometimes. But he had good days, and there, even now sometimes, again, he's aging, but the idea that he was, completely in his pajamas, drooling in soup, is just not true.
Yeah. He was very frail. But can I tell you real quickly, speaking of Walmart, I got to speak after the president and the presidential seal there and all, after we made a little a speech out at one of the homes that was damaged. And I was trying to think of something to say. And I said, we're so glad that you have the first lady with you. And I said, I like to travel with my wife. And sometimes we'll just, I'll jump in the car and say, let's run out to Walmart together. My wife said, why did you say that? She said, we never go to Walmart. I said, well, I couldn't think of anything else. So
that's good. Frank, that's a good
Walmart.
It does indeed. That's a good story. All right, Frank, before you go, I'm going to have you participate in a multiple choice quiz with Dan and Sean. Ready? Here we go.
We call it multiple guess.
Multiple guess. All right. Kennedy School of Government, Harvard University, esteemed graduate school for people interested in public policy. They've just announced their 2025 graduation speaker. Is it A, Scott Pelley, B, David Sachs, or C, Christiane Amanpour? Sean, no Googling.
I'm going Pelley.
Pelley. Dan?
I'm going C.
Christiane Amanpour?
Yeah.
Okay. And Frank?
Well, I'll go with Sachs.
All right. So one of each. The winner is Dan Turrentine. Christiane Amanpour. Christiane Amanpour. Frank, we couldn't have enjoyed having you more. We'll be in touch to figure out our trip down there. And just so you know, when we come down, we're going hard negative against the council.
Hey, that'll be fine. And we'll take a trip to Walmart.
All right. Awesome. Thank you, sir. Appreciate the story.
Was Steve Bannon not available for the graduation? So they went with Christiane.
Apparently not. All right. Let's bring our friend Matt in. Matt, welcome in. How is Jazz Fest?
I have recovered, so that's good.
All right, we've had a lot of water. You need hydrating.
It's been almost. If I'm not recovered by now, I may never recover. So,
welcome in, sir. What's on your mind?
Hey, I wanted to get your thoughts on a couple questions related to the always exciting topic of the census and house apportionment. So, first, the Census Bureau came out, I think it was a couple years ago in 2022, saying they made some mistakes in the 2020 count. Probably cost the GOP a half dozen or so House seats. So, if Speaker Johnson had a majority of, let's say, 15 seats, how different do you think the big, beautiful bill would have looked? And then secondly, related to the 2030 census, we've got, 10 million plus people here legally. Hard to say how many will still be here in 2030. Many are in blue states like California, many are in red states like Texas and Florida. In your crystal ball, what party do you think benefits in House apportionment by then, and therefore electoral votes as those individuals are counted?
Fantastic.
No question, the GOP.
Are you kidding?
No question, the GOP.
All right,
I mean,
have it out, guys.
look, if you just look at at 2030, so there's two parts, there's Congress and the White House. If we won the blue wall back, we're still going to come up woefully short right after 2030, because the seats, they're going to leave the north, they're going to go down south. Florida, Texas, Georgia, Carolina, Arizona, Nevada are all going to probably gain seats. So for us, from the presidential level, one, it's a huge problem. Two, I think what you're going to see in the South when it comes to Congress is they're just going to take those Republican seats that are 80-20, they'll make them 65-35, and unless we win gubernatorial and state legislatures, you're just going to, pad out the House more, probably net 10 seats. And so I think for us, this is about why we have to think differently to put Georgia and Florida, like we have to be competitive every year in those states just to have a chance to win the White House and get the House back. We can't keep saying it's the 3 seats in California and 3 seats in New York and 1 in Illinois, and how much can we squeeze out of Maryland? Just won't work anymore. The math's not there.
Sean.
So first of all, Matt, kudos. I mean, I'll tell you, this question is phenomenal, and I'll tell you why. I have been a big believer that the Biden open border / Democrat open border strategy was always predicated on this idea of the path to citizenship. But you put your finger on something that I've become a convert to, the new real thinking, which is you let them in. The census counts people, not citizens. I believe there was an early estimate probably 4 or 5 months ago that says the Democrats benefited at least 10 seats currently by the current construct. I believe that number is probably closer to 20 million people that have been in the country. It doesn't matter. I mean, regardless, they're benefiting from this, and it's blunting potential gains more than anything else. Where they're located, again, think about where those people went to get benefits, California, et cetera. This adds to their total population, therefore gets them more seats. I think there's no question that Democrats benefit from the census counting people that are not legally in this country. And it's something that the GOP better get its finger on sooner rather than later, because getting people out of the country who are not here legally is not just about short-term benefits, but about the census and redistricting. And so I think, reapportionment and redistricting are both something that people have to understand are critical. And like I said, early estimates, they might be off a little, but who cares? If it's 5 or 10 seats, that goes to the first part of your question. How different would that construct be? What does the Electoral College look like? But it has so many implications that we don't talk about. And so I think the push to get people out of the country that are not legally here is critical.
I think so many of those seats, Sean, are in red states. Just respectfully, I don't think that it's the North. It is Texas picking up 4 seats, Florida picking up.
But where it also
Arizona,
goes to where though, Dan?
Yeah, no, I get it. But you guys control the state legislatures, you control the governors, you control the redistricting process. You're netting states out of blue seats that are losing population. I just think respectfully, if you take all those folks out, it's going to harm Republicans, not Democrats. That's just my opinion. I mean,
Matt, great question, as everyone has said. Did you have another one?
No, it was just kind of 2 parts.
It's a great question.
Yeah, really, really smart. Thank you, Matt. Appreciate it.
Well, the questions are on fire today.
They are. All right. Philip, I believe Philip may well be new. Philip, are you new to this, raising your hand here? You are. Unmute,
Phillip, no
please.
pressure.
Unmute. Tell us where you are. Tell us your best story about Joe Biden and your spouse and or Walmart or
eyes,
whatever's on your mind, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm on the eastern shore of Maryland, and
beautiful place.
And this is my first time calling in, although I've been watching the show since before the election. You came up on the YouTube algorithm, so
very, very grateful to have you part of it.
Congressman.
The lone Republican congressman from Maryland.
Yes, I was going to say that's his district.
Dr. Andy Harris, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Who I didn't vote for the first time he ran because I thought he was a carpetbagger, because he used to be over on the Western Shore, and we Eastern Shore people don't like to vote for people on the Western Shore, but then he moved over here. So anyway, so I wanted to comment on the information that you were talking about regarding Harvard and the whole dust up with them. And it seems to me that Harvard, and this also applies to people like NPR, they should just look at somebody like Hillsdale College or Grove City University. These schools stop taking federal funding for anything, and basically nobody can tell them what to do and what not to do for the most part. And it seems to me that there are a ton of very wealthy people in this country, millionaires and billionaires, that I think that could more than fill in any kind of loss of federal funding. And if somebody like Harvard or, National Public Radio or public media, those folks, basically, if they just got out from under the funding, they could do whatever they want.
Yeah.
And it seems to me that they would have plenty of resources to do that. That's just my thought.
Yes, sir.
All the example of these other schools.
Yes, sir. Along the lines of what I suggested. Dan.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I think one of the interesting things is, and it's been written about now as this fight's happened, is this grant system started largely around the two world wars, when the U.S. wanted to outsource research to the institutions that had the structure and the capability and the talent to accelerate innovation around the wars. And then it just kind of stayed and morphed and got into healthcare and all these different things. And so to your point, I do agree with the theory of why should we continue to keep doing it just because we've always done it? Like, should there be a revisiting of this? Should the money go to community colleges? Should it go to trade schools? Should it, that's a worthy public policy discussion. I still think Harvard should probably receive some money because I think they do some really good research and work. But the idea that we've always had it and it's ours, it's like when, what was it, in Scott Brown's famous debate when Martha Coakley called it the Kennedy seat, and he's like, no, it's the people of Massachusetts seat. It's kind of the same thing a little bit.
I distinguish between the two, right? So I think NPR, PBS, I know a lot of folks on my side like to say that, complain about the ideological bent, and I agree, they're left wing, but philosophically, that should be what we care about. Like, the idea that the government is in the news business is ridiculous. So I think that on that alone, we should defund it. And I think you're absolutely right, Philip. Like, if a bunch of Hollywood leftists want to fund NPR, God bless them, fund it. But I don't know why we are funding a news outlet and frankly, even or a TV station. It doesn't make sense. So I would wipe those out, let them, and they should stand on their own. If they're worthy, then let the communities that support them pay them. And to your point, all of these guys in Hollywood in particular who love to talk about NPR and PBS make millions of dollars, and they can just stroke a check and help make up that money. Harvard, to me, is a little bit of a different thing. I agree with Dan. I mean, I think that the whole system needs to be re-looked at. But going out and competitively winning a grant is a little different. But I do think that we just keep setting. When you go through, like, on any given day, if you're really bored, go to the Federal Register and just look at the things that we're spending money on. And you have to ask yourself, like, why? Like, and there's a lot of it just reflexive. Well, we did this study last time, so we're going to update the study or whatever. There's a lot of money that we never is on autopilot. And I think that there should be a return to asking why we're doing, what we're getting for it. And obviously this is a much bigger discussion because we talked about this before. We're funding certain pieces of research. And then the question is, are we then as taxpayers benefiting from what we're paying for, particularly in the area of innovation and pharmaceuticals? All
right, Philip, you game for a multiple choice quiz question with Dan and Sean? All right, here we go. Which of the following people has never been named a Kentucky colonel? Which of the following people has never been named a Kentucky colonel? A, Mark Halperin. Maybe I was lying. B, Colonel Sanders. C, Rick Perry. D, John Podhoretz.
I know that Rick Perry has been. That's a fact. I'm clearly going to stick with Mark.
I'm guessing Podhoretz is watching and said, me too.
Well, but there's no way that I don't know. Colonel Sanders.
Yeah, but that's so obvious that it's not. I'm going to go with Colonel Sanders.
All right.
Dan says Colonel Sanders. Podhoretz just because nobody else did.
All right, Sean, who are you saying, Sean?
Why the heck would he ever be named?
Sean.
Right.
I'm going with Colonel Sanders.
Colonel Sanders. All right, put it up. Put it up. John Podhoretz, John Podhoretz, watching the program.
Oh, we got to bring him in here.
We
got to hear the story.
Was in fact a Kentucky colonel. The correct answer, as far as I know, is Rick Perry. I suppose he might have been named a Kentucky colonel. But,
he's got to have been.
But the other three, I can guarantee you, including Colonel Sanders and myself, and John Podhoretz of the Upper West Side. John, I wonder who else on the Upper West Side is.
Yeah, I was going to say that is all right. So, Mark, why were you named or honored as a Kentucky colonel?
No, Dan. The correct question is why not, Dan?
Yeah.
Why not? Why not? I went and spoke to the with Carl Bernstein. I went and spoke to the Louisville Chamber of Commerce. There were like 1,200 people in the audience, and the moderator was Scott Jennings. And I don't know. Speaking of the Chamber of Commerce, they're dime a dozen. I mean, if you eat in 3 different Wendy's in Kentucky, they make you a Kentucky colonel.
Well, I'll tell you that there's
bar is low.
We should get the community here to weigh it. So, like in Texas, you can be a Texas admiral.
Yeah. Somebody Google and see if Rick Perry's ever been Kentucky colonel.
Wait, and where's Podhoretz? Let's hear. John.
Want to hear how John?
I want to hear
how John became a Kentucky colonel. Philip, do you want to hear John's story?
Sure.
There he is.
All right, John. John, tell us the story, and hopefully it involves your beautiful eyes. Hopefully, the governor at the time said,
and John, remember, kids are watching. So
John, you have such beautiful eyes. You must be a Kentucky colonel.
Well, it was 1863, Battle of Frankfurt. People said, "How are we going to prevail in this?" And then I joined AP Hill in coming up. And
all right, we're
Yankees.
Time
very
runs short.
Simply.
How did you become a Kentucky colonel?
Okay, just to explain, the Kentucky colonel is I was on a trip, a junket for the American Swiss Federation in 1998, and on that trip was the Lieutenant Governor of Kentucky, Ben Chandler, who ended up as a congressman.
Yeah.
And the entire trip, I was like, how do you get to be a Kentucky colonel? I want to be a Kentucky colonel. Why are all these people? And I'm not a Kentucky colonel. And he laughed, and I laughed, and I was sort of needling him. And then 3 weeks later in the mail came my commission as a Kentucky colonel. So I want to thank Ben Chandler. I want to thank the good people of Kentucky. I want to thank
the Commonwealth of Kentucky.
The Commonwealth of Kentucky, the Jack Daniels Corporation, and the airport in Covington, which is literally the only place I have ever been in Kentucky. Was in the airport.
Do you get commissary privileges in Kentucky?
I can only hope that if I am ever pulled over in Kentucky, if I ever return and I'm pulled over for a speeding ticket, I can somehow take the photograph I just took out of my iPhone and show it to the patrolman.
Mr. Podhoretz, I'm so sorry.
No, Colonel.
Let me give you a siren escort to the closest airport.
This sounds like an episode of Seinfeld.
I want to tell you,
Colonel. Can I become a colonel?
I will tell you something about the power of the federal government and what I learned in Covington, Kentucky, which is the reason I was in Covington, Kentucky, as I'm sure Sean knows, having been on presidential trips, is the one time I was a Reagan speechwriter. The one trip I took with the president, he went and spoke at a rally in 1988 in Cincinnati. And the airport that Air Force One landed on was in Covington, Kentucky. And we landed at like 3:00 in the afternoon. And what the Secret Service did that made me realize that the federal government was too powerful and it was too creepy, among other things, was that they shut the entire highway down, both directions, north and south, from Covington, Kentucky to Cincinnati. The Secret Service had the airport, had the highway shut down. Yeah. And then we drove on the opposite side, like we were going north. We drove on the south side of the highway, into the motorcade up to the speech in Cincinnati. And I thought the entire metropolis of Cincinnati has been shut down for this one motorcade, for this one trip, which was a political trip to give a rally speech for George H.W. Bush's presidential campaign. And I thought that is an abuse of power.
All right, I got to warn our affiliates, we're going to run just a little bit over because we've had this unexpected story. And as Kramer would say, oh, he's a colonel, Jerry. He's a colonel. John, thank you for sharing that. Philip, thank you for coming in and sharing your Eastern Shore perspective. Sean, what do you have tonight?
Chicks on the Right, and we're going to talk about Pete Buttigieg and his concerns about porn and all sorts of. I mean, he gave us a lot of material to talk about.
Oh,
All right, 2 ways later today at noon. Meghan McCain, Citizen McCain, noon Eastern Time, live on the two-way platform and YouTube and X. Her guest, Lachlan Cartwright, co-founder of Breaker Media. Please tune in for Meghan. 6 o'clock, I'll be back with Two Way tonight, and my guest, along with all the day's news, Dr. Patrick Soon-Shiong, the owner of the Los Angeles Times and one of the country's biggest cancer experts. So we'll talk about the media, we'll talk about the recovery of Los Angeles from the fires, but we'll also talk about cancer. So if you've got questions about your family's cancer situation, about the state of research in cancer, anything cancer related, we'd love for you to join us. And the doctor is just an extraordinary explainer of the latest science in an accessible way. So we'll see at 6 for that. And then right after that, 7 Eastern, Bridget will be back. Bridget Fedesi and Real America with Bridget every Wednesday at 7.
Yes, if shameless plug here, but if Dan takes a copy of the briefing behind him and looks up Patrick's name, you'll see my story, how I got to know Patrick over cancer, and I detail that in the briefing. So he's an amazing man when it comes to what he has done on cancer research and advances in that field.
Yeah, he's extraordinary. And whenever he's been on, people have reacted quite a bit. So again, if you're interested in the topic, or again, if you're dealing with it currently in your family, a great opportunity to share stories and to get information. So we'll see you at 6. And then, of course, the 3 of us will be back tomorrow. We'll have updates on our Key to the City and the planning for that trip and how you can attend. We'll also be able to tell you by then whether Rick Perry's ever been a Kentucky colonel, in which case I apologize for giving you a question with no good answers. And there's something else pending, but I can't tell for the life of me say what it is. Gentlemen, have a great day. Megan at noon, me at 6, Bridget at 7, Sean at 6, and we'll see you all here tomorrow. Same bad time, same bad channel, 9 a.m. Eastern Time for what Dan likes to call
the morning meeting.
Have a great day, everybody.
Yeah.